Hey there, I'm Levi, the Garage Movie Guy. Welcome to my garage. And if you're a regular here, you might notice that the background is a little bit different this time. That's because I'm trying out one of my new video formats. If you watch my previous video, my channel update, you'll know that I'm trying to come up with ideas for videos that take less time to produce than my normal reviews. So I'm coming up with ideas for little short videos, and this video is going to be my first quick look. This is just my concept for a video where I talk off the cuff about a movie that I've seen recently. And at this point, I want to say, if you're new to my channel, I urge you to go check out my regular movie reviews. I'll put a link right up here in the corner so you can go check those out. I put a lot more thought into those, so check them out if you like them. Subscribe to my channel. And before I move on to this quick look, I wanted to remind you that I had a Twitter poll to let you help me decide what my next review is going to be. I'll give the results of that poll after this quick look. But for this first quick look, I wanted to talk about Mad Max Fury Road, specifically this edition with the normal version of the film and the black and chrome edition. If you're not familiar with it, the black and chrome edition is a version of the film that the director put out after the theatrical release that is totally black and white. Recently, I watched the film for the first time. It's a lot of action. I want to say it's nonstop, but that's not really true. There is sort of an ebb and flow in the action of the film, and I really appreciated that. I felt that the acting in this movie for an action film was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed Tom Hardy's performance. He was just a man of few words. Funnily enough, I was watching this film at night. My kids were asleep and I didn't really want to wake them up, so I kept the volume kind of low, and sometimes when I do that, I turn on captioning, and it was funny to see his lines on screen because he says maybe a few dozen words in the movie, and half of his subtitles said, One thing I will say about the characterizations is that I guess you would call them concubines, they seemed more fleshed out, some of them, in their backstory than Max. I thought that was a cool way to make him seem a little more mysterious and make them a little more endearing. And they kind of did this with Nux a little bit later on, and I appreciated that because I didn't care for him in the beginning, but he really grew on me by the end of the film. I'll say at this point, I'm not really familiar with the Mad Max series. I've seen maybe the first film. I know I haven't seen Beyond Thunderdome, but as someone who wasn't very familiar with the franchise, I didn't really feel lost at the beginning of the movie. I mean, I did, but I felt like I was supposed to feel that way because when you come in with Max, he's taken off guard, so you as the viewer are brought along with him. And then we're introduced to this general god king guy. He's all pale with a respirator. He kind of reminded me of Marlon Brando in The Island of Dr. Moreau. But back to the action of this movie, I really enjoyed how 10 to 15 minutes into this movie, you don't really know what's going on, but all of a sudden this character that you were brought in with is strapped to the front of a car with a metal cage on his face, and this guy driving the car is using his blood to boost him up like nitrous oxide, I guess. Visually, I really enjoyed the expansive nothingness that we saw throughout a lot of the film. I did think that it felt a little too post-production-y, if that makes sense. There were times where I could definitely tell they had used post-production techniques to make something have less color than something else. I especially noticed that in the guitar guy, which, by the way, that was my favorite part when they start lowering this huge vehicle and you hear boom, 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 boom. And there's, I don't know, 6 or 8 huge drums and guys just drumming on them. And then on the front of the vehicle, there's this immense stack, the biggest stack of amps you've ever seen in your life, and a dude suspended in red pajamas playing heavy metal riffs. That's what the closed captioning said. It did create a very striking visual, and that makes it even more interesting that the director chose to create a black and white version of the film. And if we're gonna talk about the black and chrome version of Mad Max Fury Road, we've got to do this. This version of the film was a lot of fun to watch, and it was visually very different from the theatrical version of the film, and I don't just mean, obviously, the color was taken away. One of the things I talked about earlier was the guy with the heavy metal guitar that was suspended in his red pajamas. You don't see that color, so he didn't really stand out as much, but I felt like it did this interesting thing where you're focusing almost completely on the main villain. And I'll say I am a fan of black and white films. I don't mind watching films in black and white if they were shot that way. way, but I felt like watching this film, it was definitely shot for color and then made black and white in the post-production process. And there was an entire sequence in the theatrical version that takes place on this muddy plain, and it's got sort of this blue cast to it. It seems like in the black and chrome edition, they really didn't do a lot to adjust those color values, I guess. It was just really hard to see what was going on. I felt like I was watching a TV with the contrast turned way down. If you have this version, I recommend that you at least watch it once. If anything else, you can turn this on in the background when you have a party and you have all these cool black and white images flashing up on the screen and gives people something to talk about. And that's what I thought about Mad Max Fury Road. Before I move on to give you the results of my poll, I wanted to talk about another YouTuber. Another thing I talked about in my previous video was that I wanted to promote other YouTubers, small YouTubers that you might not have heard of that talk about movies. The person I'm going to talk about today is Zach Pope. Zach has a lot of very fun reviews for movies, and he has a series that honestly is my favorite that he does, where Deadpool reviews movies. His most recent video had Deadpool reviewing the 50 Shades of Grey films. You should check that out. If nothing else, check out the very intro to the video. I'm not gonna say what it is, but it was really funny. So check out Zach's channel. He just recently reached 900 subscribers. He's trying to get to 1,000 before his birthday, which I believe is at the end of March. So go check out Zach. If you like what he does, please subscribe to his channel. And last but not least, I wanted to reveal the results of the Twitter poll, which was between Dick Tracy, The Rocketeer, The Shadow, and The Phantom, all 90s comic book films with varying degrees of success and quality. But I was very happy to see that The Rocketeer won. I have a lot of affection for this film, so it's going to be a lot of fun to review the movie. Look for that review probably in March or later, because the next review that's coming out is Justice League: The New Frontier, which is a phenomenal animated film. It was the second DC Universe animated film that was ever released, and it's coming up on its 10th anniversary at the end of this month. I hope to release that review in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. But until next time, I'm Levi the Garage Movie Guy saying that is bait.